You've felt it before. That half second when you turn around in a crowded store and your kid isn't where they were supposed to be. Your chest drops. Your ears start working harder than your eyes. For a moment, the whole world narrows down to one question. Where are they? It passes in seconds usually. A shelf blocked your view. They wandered 2 feet to look at something shiny. But the feeling doesn't care how short it lasted. It hits you like a full-body alarm, and you can't just talk yourself out of it. That reaction isn't new. It isn't even yours, really. It's older than language, older than fire, older than the idea of a family as you understand it. And the real answer to why it feels the way it feels is far stranger than simple parental love. Your ancestors lived with this exact moment on a loop. Not as a rare scare in a supermarket aisle, as a constant, background possibility every single day for hundreds of thousands of years. Picture a small group, maybe 20 to 40 people, moving across an open grassland in what's now East Africa. Somewhere around 2 million years ago. No fences, no walls, no doors to close at night. Just open land, tall grass, and everything in it that wanted to eat something smaller than itself. Children in this world were not watched the way children are watched now. They couldn't be. Adults were foraging, tracking, carrying, nursing, scanning the horizon for threats. A child who could walk was expected to stay close, but close in open grassland with waist-high grass means something very different than close in a living room. So they wandered. Of course they wandered. And sometimes they didn't come back on their own. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has spent decades studying what she calls cooperative breeding in early humans. The idea that unlike most primates, human children weren't raised by one mother alone. They were watched by a whole rotating cast. Aunts, grandmothers, older siblings, unrelated group members. Hrdy's research suggests this wasn't a nice cultural bonus. It was survival infrastructure. A single missing set of eyes could mean a missing child within minutes. Think about what that actually required. Not affection, vigilance, constant, low-grade, group-wide vigilance, spread across every adult and older child in camp, all day, every day, for a species that hadn't yet invented the wheel. Now think about what happens the one time that vigilance fails. A child wanders past the tree line, or toward the riverbank, or simply sits down in grass tall enough to swallow a small body hole. And when someone looks back, the space where the child was is just empty. You already know that feeling, even if you've only felt a diluted version of it. Multiply it. Strip away every modern comfort. No phone to call for help, no police to alert, no search grid, no drone. Just human legs, human eyes, and a landscape actively working against you. What did they do? They searched. Immediately, loudly, and together. Not politely, not calmly. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, including the Hadza of Tanzania, whose foraging lifestyle offers one of the closest living windows we have into ancient human behavior, have documented something striking. When a child goes missing, even briefly, the entire camp mobilizes. Not just the parents, everyone. This matters more than it sounds like it should. In a species built around small, tight-knit bands, a missing child wasn't a private family emergency. It was a group-wide alarm. Because in a world with no written records, no census, no backup plan, every single child represented the future head count of the group. Lose enough children, and the group itself stops existing in a generation or two. So the search wasn't just emotional, it was existential. Groups likely called out, not words necessarily in the earliest periods, but sounds. Distinct, carrying, urgent sounds. Different from a hunting call or a warning call. Some researchers who study the origins of human communication, including work associated with linguist Derek Bickerton, have proposed that some of the earliest vocal signals humans developed weren't about naming objects at all. They were about coordinating group behavior in moments exactly like this one. Get here. Now. Something is wrong. Imagine standing in that grassland, hearing that specific sound cut through the air. You wouldn't need to understand the words. Your whole body would already know what it meant. And here's where it gets stranger and a little heavier. Not every search ended well. Paleoanthropological evidence from sites where early hominins lived alongside large predators, leopards, hyenas, giant eagles capable of taking small children, shows exactly how real this threat was. A well-known case study on the Taung child, an early hominin fossil discovered in South Africa, revealed puncture marks on the skull consistent with talon damage from a large bird of prey. A child. Taken. Not by a rival group, not by a monster in a story, by something that simply saw an opportunity in a moment when the group's attention slipped. This wasn't a rare freak accident that got fossilized by coincidence. It was common enough that it likely shaped behavior across generations. Groups that clustered children more tightly, that assigned more eyes to watching them, that reacted faster and louder when one went missing. Those groups lost fewer of the next generation. And the next generation carried forward whatever instincts made that vigilance feel automatic instead of optional. You are, quite literally, descended from the ones who panicked correctly. That's the twist most people don't expect. The parents who calmly assumed their child was fine, who took their time, who didn't feel that gut drop urgency, their children were statistically more likely not to survive to adulthood. The parents wired to feel sudden, disproportionate alarm the second a child was out of sight, even for a moment. Their children survived more often. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that alarm system got selected for hard. It's why your chest still drops in a grocery store. Not because you consciously believe a hyena is going to take your child near the cereal aisle, because that reaction was never really about assessing the actual current risk. It's an ancient, hair trigger system built for a world with real teeth and claws hiding in real grass, and it doesn't fully know it's living in a different world now. There's another layer to this that's easy to miss. When a search succeeded, when the child was found, shaken but alive, tucked behind a rock or asleep under a bush, the reunion wasn't quiet either. Primatologists studying chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, have observed something similar after a mother and infant are briefly separated in the wild. An intense, almost frantic physical reunion. Grabbing, holding, vocalizing. It's not gentle relief. It's closer to a nervous system resetting itself. Human groups likely did something similar and arguably more elaborate. A found child probably wasn't returned to camp in silence. There would have been noise. Physical contact from multiple adults, not just the parent. Maybe even a kind of communal exhale. Because remember, this wasn't only a parent's crisis. It was the group's crisis. When it resolved, the group needed to feel that resolution too. You can still see traces of this today if you know where to look. Watch what happens in a public space when a lost child is reunited with a parent. It's rarely just the two of them. Strangers exhale. Some clap. A few people who have no biological connection to that child at all feel a genuine wave of relief. That's not modern sentimentality. That's an old circuit firing exactly the way it was built to. Here's the part that reframes everything, though. This deep, ancient system wasn't only built to handle the worst-case scenario. It was built to prevent it in the first place. Researcher Kristen Hawkes, known for her work on the grandmother hypothesis, has argued that the presence of grandmothers in early human groups, women past reproductive age who nonetheless lived long, active lives, may have been one of the most important survival advantages our species ever developed. Not because grandmothers were sentimental extras, because they were free labor for exactly this kind of vigilance. An extra set of eyes not tied down by nursing, not exhausted from a full day of foraging, watching the children other adults couldn't watch closely enough. This is why the instinct to watch the kids doesn't just live in parents. It lives, to some degree, in almost everyone. Ask any adult what they do when they notice a small child wandering alone near a road, a pool, a parking lot, with no parent visible. Most people don't shrug and walk on. Something older than personal responsibility kicks in, a discomfort, an urge to at least glance around for the parent or say something. That discomfort is the same ancient alarm, just quieter, tuned down from "my child is missing" to "a child near me might become missing." It's still doing its job. So the next time your stomach drops because you can't immediately see your kid or your niece or a child you're simply near, understand what's actually happening underneath that feeling. You're not being irrational. You're not overreacting to a modern, mostly safe world. You're running a program that was built over hundreds of thousands of years, tested against real predators, real open landscapes, and real loss refined generation after generation by exactly the people who felt it strongly enough to act. Tonight, when you turn around in a store or a park or your own backyard, and for 1 second you can't find them, your body already knows the stakes it's guarding against, even if your mind knows better. And in that half second before you spot them again, you're not just a modern parent having a scare. You're the living result of every ancestor who searched, called out, and refused to stop until the child was found.